The Arctic, a hostile place, isolated, inaccessible, land, frozen rivers, lakes, and oceans. It's a landscape dominated by snow and ice, both above and below the ground. A place where only few can actually live. And it's still a realm where modern-day explorers have to plan serious expeditions to go and visit. In a way, this perception is true. But actually, in reality, the Arctic Circle is only 1,000 kilometers away from Helsinki. It is connected to the rest of the globe, and not just along the 16,000 kilometers perimeter of the Arctic Circle. For example, waters produced in the Arctic Ocean help drive the whole of the circulation of the global oceans. The waters that freeze in the winter produce dense saline waters that sink and drive that global ocean circulation that has impacts for the whole of the planet. So a key fundamental issue is what happens in the Arctic impacts on the rest of the globe. And of course, the contrary is true. What happens in the rest of the globe impacts on the Arctic. The second key fundamental issue to grasp is that the Arctic is changing rapidly relative to the past 100, 50, 20, or even 10 years. So I first went to the Arctic about 30 years ago for my first expedition to the Fram Strait. What was known then about ice and seasonal dynamics of the ice in the Arctic Ocean was completely different to what we know about the annual changes we measure today. So the textbooks that were written and valid 30 years ago, and the papers that were coming out of our community 30 years ago, are really no longer valid. On top of that, we know that permafrost is thawing. Summer wildfires are increasing. Sea ice, as I said before, is declining. And so the seasons without that snow and ice cover are getting longer. Species that have never been recorded in the Arctic are now being found there. They're moving in. Species that were once only found at the perimeter of the Arctic or only moving in summer months are having longer periods of time within Arctic waters. And also, species that have been restricted to the Arctic in the past are either changing their seasonal dynamics or potentially, unfortunately, some of them will actually die out and not be able to live there anymore. Of course, as the Arctic changes, it's becoming more accessible. It's becoming more accessible to human activities. Now, to some, this is an opportunity. Global shipping will change. There's going to be oil and gas deposits to become accessible and become available whenever they were before. Rare earth elements, so vital to our everyday living, are going to become available. Now, of course, to others, this accessibility means a loss of culture. Traditional livelihoods are going to change. There's going to be changes in health dynamics. Now, what I find really interesting and what is going to be key to my time here in Helsinki as a natural scientist is feeding the information about how the changes in the environment across the land, the permafrost, across the ice, across the rivers and the lakes, how we're going to inform the social transition that is going to inevitably take place. So what I hope to do in my time at the University of Helsinki is to study Arctic ecosystems in their entirety and, importantly, the connections between them. The further the connections with the outside world as well. Now, in particular, I can't do everything, but in particular, we're going to look at the cycling of carbon and nitrogen and other inorganic elements such as phosphorus and silicate. And to do that, by definition, in the kind of work that I do, I'm going to have to team up with microbiologists who are working in the soils, the fresh waters, the ice, the seas, and the oceans. This is because much of the cycling of these elements is mediated, is catalyzed by microorganisms. So that is going to be a key emphasis of the work that we do here in Helsinki. For instance, I'm a marine biologist by training, but the kind of work that I do transcends traditional research boundaries. For example, I've just returned from Kilpisjärvi, where went there with my first Helsinki master student, and we were sampling ponds and small lakes in the fells around Sana. It couldn't be further removed from the fieldwork that I'm more used to on large research ships. However, the processes and the concepts that we were studying in those ponds and in those lakes were basically the same that I've been doing for a long time now in the oceans. If you remember at the beginning of this very short introduction, I mentioned that we can't treat the Arctic as an isolated region. The study of the connections in this period of massive change are key to understanding what's going on. And these changes are happening rapidly. So it's no longer enough to simply plan for changes taking place in the next decades or the next 50 years or so. We need to be understanding the changes that are taking place over years and maybe even year to year. So the samples that we took the other week up in Kilpisjärvi, actually, they may be very different, or the processes may be different by this time next year, or in 2 years' time, or in 5 years' time. So the things that are happening up there are really, really rapid. And in the work that we do, we have to respond to the rapidity of that change. Now, another fundamental task for me and my group will be to let the non-specialists know what is going on. This is a fundamental core feature of the work that I do, because ultimately, it's taxes that pay for the privilege, and it is a real privilege that we have for doing research. I've always thought it's my responsibility to convey my research in a way that is not hidden within the inaccessible language of scientific reports and papers. So my plea is to you, or my challenge is to you, challenge me to keep you informed in a way that is useful to you. But of course, and this is a key point to which to end on, I guess, is it's the students who are the future and will be doing the key work to cope with the transitional changes that we're talking about. So I look forward to working with University of Helsinki students to help them discover, and it's to discover their potential, so that they can bring creativity and innovation to answer big questions in a way that me and my generation have not been able to do. So that they can address the complex and the profound, massive societal changes that are occurring, together with the massive and profound climate changes that are taking place. And they can work out how to net this complexity together and come up with answers that are really so vital for society going forward into the future. If you want to follow the journey that we're going to make at the University of Helsinki, I'm prolific on Twitter. It will all be there. And of course, we will do our best to put it onto the website as well. So thank you very much, and I look forward to working with you in the future.